Still in quarantine and in a cozy sweater. I'm Richard Rellis here with columnist Bob Robb. There's two American traditions in part of elections: polling and news organizations calling races. And Bob, you kind of want to see both go away. Let's start with polling. There's a lot of people discussing reasons why the polls might have been wrong. You offer a simple answer. People just don't want to take polls anymore.
And I think that there's an ideological tilt to people who don't want to talk to pollsters. You have a consistent mistake in the polls. Almost always, the support that's shown for Republicans or conservative causes are understated in the polls compared to actual voting results. I think that even independent of that ideological tilt, which I think is fatal, you simply, in the modern era, pollsters aren't able to get enough people to respond to them to make sure that they have a representative sample. They try to manipulate the demographics to make it balance. But it's kind of clear from the last several election cycles that is insufficient. Now, pollsters may still want to issue polls. My main call is to us in our profession to quit paying such close attention to polls that are useless at best, misleading at worst, and instead devote our energies to covering issues and positions of the candidates that might be more meaningful and useful to voters than misleading horse race polls.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting position that you had that you say Biden had that probably would have been unpopular in Arizona, but you also point out that had we done that kind of coverage, it would have been difficult with President Trump to delineate what a second-term agenda would have looked like, right?
Yes. I mean, Biden, to his credit, offered a detailed agenda. And in the column, I point to one item that almost nobody in Arizona knew about that would have had profound effects on Arizona, repealing the ability of states to enact right-to-work laws. Ordinarily, the way that I write, I would have then cited an example from Trump's second-term agenda to say this isn't a partisan observation, except that there was no second-term agenda, which may be one of the reasons why he was not effective in making this election a choice as opposed to a referendum on him.
And we see protesters out in front of the elections department arguing for the ballots to be counted, but you say that large measure of that is blamed on the broadcast networks, news organizations calling the races.
Well, I believe in personal responsibility. So the protesters are ultimately responsible for standing in front of people counting votes and insisting that they count votes. That's an imbecilic chant for which they are responsible. But I do believe that the premature call of Arizona by the Associated Press and Fox News was a precipitating event. The media has no role in calling elections. They have no official function. And when AP called Arizona, it underestimated the number of ballots that were left to be counted, which meant that it overestimated the percentage of the remaining vote that Trump had to achieve in order to close the gap with Biden. It may be that Biden ends up winning the election. It looks in Arizona, it looks like that. But that was unknowable. We're in a real squeaker, and it was unknowable what the results were going to be in Arizona when the election was called by AP and Fox. And I think if the media had simply said, okay, here's what we know. Here are the reports. Here's the votes that have been counted. Here's the ballots that are remaining. Here's the percentage of the vote that Trump needs in order to close the gap. There's nothing to protest. It was the call that triggered the event. And in Arizona, as it turns out, it was premature to make that call.
And in a way, I wonder if we had a bit of that Friday and into Saturday morning when people seemed to be reluctant to call and they were just reporting latest ballot numbers, how many are left. And at least on social media, there seemed to be a hue and cry of I'm going to borrow the vocabulary word of the day from your column, neuralgia, from people saying, we want someone to call this. Like, do voters have to be retrained to just accept the facts in front of them and not have it be pronounced that here's a winner?
Certainly that would be healthier. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the media usurps the role of election officials and makes calls and proclaims winners, is because people want to know who won. But we have a process for deciding that in the United States. And I think it would reduce some of the tension if the media reported on that official process rather than usurp the role of declaring winners and losers themselves. I think trying to play this role, for one, they're not equipped to play it. Two, I think that it exacerbates the tension because it's not election officials. It's not based upon actual counts. It's a bunch of media nerds making projections, and sometimes they get them wrong.
Right. And I guess there would still be room for Kornacki's big board and all that new world, but interesting way of.
Absolutely. That's informative. And if you want to say likely winner or presumed winner, just don't say we call the election. This guy has won.
Electronic confetti. Excellent. Good stuff as always, Bob.
Thanks.